friends, and welcome to a new series on my channel that I'm going to call Tutu Tuesdays. I was chatting with a couple of friends about starting a series like this, and this, of course, is going to be where we chat about all things ballet and dance related. I'm not going to upload one every single Tuesday, at least right now, because my life is crazy. But I will do my best to get a couple Tuesdays a month up for this as I think of topics or as people mention topics to me. So if you have something that you'd like to hear me talk about that's ballet or dance related, or maybe teaching dance related, leave me a comment below or send me a DM on Instagram. I'll leave that linked below as well. If there's anything that you're curious to hear me talk about, kind of podcast style, because some of these will be personal stories of mine from my dance career, or it might be topics that we need to discuss in the ballet world and in the dance world as a whole. But I thought, what better way to start the series than to have a little sit-down story time for our first Tutu Tuesday on how I became a professional dancer. Because as you will find out the more you watch of my channel, I don't do things the conventional way most of the time. And this was no different. So the way I became a professional dancer was not the way I expected, or at least the path to get there was not what I expected. So let's start the story time. Grab yourself some snacks, grab yourself a drink, and let's get comfy. So just to start at the very beginning, I guess, I have always been in dance class since I was a little girl. I went to see a production of The Nutcracker when I was 4 or 5 years old. My mom took me to see it, and I told her from that day on, I was like, I want to be a ballerina. You know, classic beginnings for a lot of dancers out there. And I actually started off taking ballet and tap, and I told my mom, no, I don't like tap. I don't want to tap. I just want to do ballet. Now, in hindsight, I wish I had kept up tap because I think people who tap are so cool. And I watch them and I'm like, I really wish I could do that. Like, I really wish I had stuck with tap so that I could have that skill. And my goal on my bucket list is to take an adult tap class one of these days when I have the time, but I digress. Just took ballet for all that time. I started at a little studio in Maryland where we used to live, and then we moved to Virginia because my dad was in the Air Force. So we moved to Virginia. We used to live in Haymarket for a little while, and then we lived in Manassas for the rest of our time there. So I attended a couple of different studios in the Northern Virginia area. The name of the one in Fairfax is escaping me at this moment in time. But I loved my teachers there. I had a little bit of Balanchine and Cicchetti to start off with, and which are the American styles, and the Italian style is Cicchetti. Mostly Cicchetti when I was young, about 10 years old, at my first studio in Fairfax. And then I moved to a studio in Manassas when I was about 12 years old, and that's when I got my first pair of pointe shoes, was when I was 12 years old. And I'm very grateful for my teachers holding off on putting me on pointe, because kids these days start pointe so young a lot of the times. But I am so grateful because I've always had weak ankles, always, and I still do to this day. So I'm grateful that my teachers did not start me on pointe until I was 12, because I've been very fortunate and I have not had any serious foot injuries. Sprained ankles, yes, many of those. But serious foot injuries or problems, no. And my students always get fascinated when I tell them I have never had a blister from my pointe shoes. I have never, and it's true to this day, like I have never had the blisters that most dancers get on their toes when they start pointe. And fun fact, when I was young and that age and all of my friends were getting blisters, I wanted so badly to get blisters because I was like, to me, it was a rite of passage of some kind. I was like, man, like, have I really started point if I haven't got blisters? But of course, now I'm grateful that I don't have that, and I still don't have that. And I mean, I used to use more toe tape than I do now, but like now I just slide my toe pads on, slide my shoes on, and good to go. And it's always been that way. So I've been very lucky in that respect. But started point when I was 12, stayed at that studio for a few years. It was a very toxic environment. But that was where I met my Russian teacher, who arguably shaped me into the dancer that I am today. She was very hard on me at times, but I had her for upwards of 6 years going into my high school experience, and she gave me every muscle that I have, and I credit her to this day. I always tell stories of her to my students. Miss Dina, if you ever watch this video or if you ever see this, I will always have the utmost respect for you, and I credit you with everything to do with my career to this day. So she gave me the best training of my life. And I switched studios again my sophomore or junior year of high school. I can't remember which, but I was at another studio my last 2 years of high school and continued all through this time. I was performing with like smaller youth companies is what they call it. One of the studios had a professional company attached to it, Manassas Ballet Theater. If you've ever heard of them, stay far away from them. That's for another video. I will get into the tea about Manassas Ballet Theater in another video. But anyways, I was there and performed with the company as like a student of their school for a long time. So I got to experience the classical ballets like Coppelia. What else did we do? We did the Nutcracker every year, of course. So I did a lot of different roles in the Nutcracker growing up and getting onto point and stuff. We did Coppelia, we did Giselle one year, and a lot of this was my first experience with character dancing, folk dancing as well. Loved it. Then at Virginia Ballet Company, which is where I was for my last 2 years of high school, that was a youth company, meaning it was just high school performers and middle school performers. So they also did a bunch of classical ballets. I ended up doing Giselle again while I was there, and they did Firebird, but I didn't participate because it was my senior year of high school. Did Nutcracker over there a couple times too. And then I went to college. I went to college at Radford University, which is right next to Virginia Tech, if you have never heard of it. And I went there because I was specifically looking for programs with a Russian teacher, because I had grown so accustomed to my Russian training from my one teacher that I had for so many years. So I wanted to continue that and building my strength in that way, because it works really well for my body and still does. So I went to Radford, which is where I met my mentor and ballet professor, Inessa Plekhanova. And Miss Inessa, if you ever watch this, I love you too. You changed my life. You will never know how much you changed my life. She became my mentor over those 4 years, and she really fostered a love of teaching in me as well, because she would let me substitute her classes occasionally when I became an upperclassman, while she would go away to judge. She went away to judge competitions in Japan like every spring or every other spring, and one time I got to sub a bunch of her classes for her like while she was gone, and that was so vital to my love of teaching and just fostering my desire to be a Vaganova Russian trained teacher as well as a dancer. And I got a lot of great classical experience as well when I was in college. We did La Bayadere excerpts, we did more Nutcracker, we did excerpts from Don Q, Dream Scene. I did variations while I was there. She also let me do White Swan Pas de Deux from Swan Lake for my senior showcase. So I loved my college dance experience, absolutely loved it. So you're probably listening to this thinking, well, okay, we're 10 minutes in now. How is this unconventional? Just wait, just wait. Um, my college years are things went really well in college on one aspect, but my life also started to to get more complex during that time of my life. And this is where my personal life starts to interfere. So, my sophomore year of college, my mom, who was my best friend in the world, loved her so much. She was diagnosed with colon cancer my sophomore year of college, which was a huge altering life development for our whole family. And she was off and on of chemo. She had 1 year in remission. And then my super senior year, where I stayed to finish my education degree at Radford, she got it back again in her lungs the second time. And it was stage 4 the second time, which means it's pretty much terminal when you're stage 4 cancer. So it was worse. It was much worse the second time around. So for multiple reasons, but that being the main one, I really wanted to go to grad school at home because we lived really close to George Mason. And I was planning to pursue my master's in education for early childhood ed. Again, another story, another time. But for the sake of this story, I finished my degrees at Radford. I moved home to my parents' house in Manassas because they still lived there at the time. And then I was going to go to George Mason University for my graduate degree in early childhood for 2 years. And I was going to live at home and save up money before I started my life, whatever. And at this point, I really hadn't thought about what that meant for my dance career, or if it was a good idea or a bad idea to take that much time off of dancing. Because my focus was not really to find a job at the time. My focus was to go home and spend time with my family and with my mom because she was dealing with so much. Having to do chemo again, she was doing radiation as well the second time. And again, she was so much sicker the second time than she was the first time. So I moved home in December because I graduated in December. And I was going to start at George Mason in January of 2016. And I was all set to go, all registered, whatever. So I spent a Christmas with my family as usual, had the holidays, had the month off, was ready to start grad school and get going. And my first week of grad school at the end of January, my first week, my mom suddenly, very unexpectedly passed away. It was just like that. It was basically overnight. We just watched her just deteriorate overnight. And it was the fastest thing that has ever happened to this day in my life that I've ever witnessed. And that could be another video on the channel at some point, talking about experiencing a sick parent and losing a parent at a young age. But I was 23. Yes, I had just turned 23, and I lost the most influential person in my life at that time. The person that I was closest to. My mom and I were best friends. I told her everything. We texted every day, constantly, even while I was away at college for 4 years, just all the time. So, yeah, that, needless to say, derailed my entire life for those couple of years. That's when I developed major depression. And I still somehow went to grad school. I cannot tell you to this day how I did it. I don't remember a lot of it. I don't remember a lot of the friends that I made or people that I talked to or classes that I liked or didn't like, because I was just in this fog. And again, I was not thinking about my career whatsoever during this time because I was focused in survival mode. I had school to worry about, and grad school is hard. Like, grad school is a whole other animal. Like, you're writing 25, 30-page papers for classes on the daily, for your homework, and for an education degree, you have to go teach in a school during the day. So I was going to public schools and to different classrooms, and I was doing my student teaching experience, which I definitely have some story time videos about. Coming in the future as well. But I was trying desperately to just get through it, and I nearly imploded during those 2 years. I did not go to therapy, which I should have. I just didn't have the mental space to like seek help. I was just so deep in survival mode. And I was taking care of my brother as well because he is 9 years younger than me, and he was only 14 at the time when our mom passed away. So he had just started high school. So I kind of assumed a motherly role in the household for those couple of years, like taking him to school physically. Like, I drove him to school for about a year until he could get his driver's license and drive himself and all of that. And until I had student teaching. So that was a whole factor. But during this time, I was just teaching at a local studio, who the owner was one of my teachers when I was young, when I was about 12 years old, and they had opened their own studio. So I taught for him and his wife for those 2 years that I was there, and it was a wonderful place. Academy of Russian Ballet of Virginia. If you're looking for a wonderful studio in the Manassas, Virginia area, please go and see them. They're wonderful. They have 2 locations now, Manassas and Herndon. Love them. But I would not have survived if I had not had that little bit of dance in my life at that during those times. I don't think I would have survived because my students gave me so much joy, and they just reminded me of what I truly loved. And even though I wasn't dancing myself, like watching them grow and getting to talk about ballet like every like 2 or 3 times a week and teach, and on Saturdays I'd be there for hours. Like during Nutcracker I was there for like 5 hours on Saturdays sometimes, and I was even in Nutcracker as the Mouse King one year. That was a fun adventure. So it kind of kept me in the door with dance, teaching over there during those 2 years while I was super depressed at the same time. And then a very serendipitous event happened. So the Mariinsky Ballet, what used to be known as the Kirov Ballet, the Mariinsky Ballet came to perform at the Kennedy Center one January, I believe it. Yeah, it was definitely January because I don't think I'll ever forget that date. They came to the Kennedy Center, and they hardly ever come to perform. So I was gonna go see the performance, and I was on Kennedy Center's email list because I had been a supernumerary or a background dancer person for some of ABT's performances over the years, like, and I was still a part of that. So they emailed us and they said, hey, just so you know, Mariinsky's gonna offer a master class. And I was like, a what? Like, that's unheard of. I don't think I've ever heard of the Mariinsky Ballet coming to the States and offering a master class. Like, excuse me. So I was obviously very interested in that with my Russian training and Vaganova upbringing pretty much. And I was like, wow. And it was the teacher, I cannot remember her name, but she was amazing. She was the rehearsal director of the corps de ballet, is how they described her credentials. So she just rehearsed the corps de ballet of the Mariinsky. And she was going to be teaching the class, and it was a 2-hour master class for intermediate and advanced dancers only. And I was just like, oh, I'm so there. Like, I haven't taken a dance class in 2 years, but let me go to this class. I was just like, it was the first thing that like had given me some sense of life in my system in like 2 years time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to this class. Um, and so I registered, or so I thought. I didn't see a place to like pay online. So I show, like the day of, I show up at the Kennedy Center. It's like a 45-minute drive from my house in Virginia to get to DC. So I drive there, I go in the parking garage, and I go up into the beautiful Kennedy Center hallways that are lined with red carpet. And I had my hair done in my fancy like audition bun, like slicked back fancy. I had beautiful dangly earrings on and like my favorite long sleeve leotard and a skirt. And I was like ready to just enjoy myself. And I walk up to the registration table, and the two girls that were running it were so nice. And they were like, oh, like, did you register online? And I said, well, I think so, but I didn't see a place to pay. And they said, oh, you were supposed to pay online to reserve your spot. And I said, oh no, like I didn't pay online. I couldn't figure out how to do it. And they said, well, we don't have your name down as being able to take this class, but we'll like just wait here. And if somebody doesn't show up and there's a spot that opens up, then we can get you into the class, but it's just that it's full right now. And I said, okay. So I sat on the floor of the Kennedy Center hallway, watching people go and come, just like sitting in my butterfly stretch, just hoping that I could get into this class. And lo and behold, a woman walks up, and she very nervously approaches the table, and I heard her ask those girls, hi, is this class for beginners? And I'm thinking to myself, that email said it was for intermediate and advanced dancers only, meaning you've got to have Vaganova experience. And so the girls were like, no, it's not for beginners. Like, it's not like a basic ballet class. It's really for advanced dancers only. And she goes, oh, okay, then I'm not going to do it, and walks away. And I literally jumped off that floor, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I ran up to the table and I said, hey, like, I just heard that she's not going in. Can I have her spot? And I was fully ready to pay. Like, I was fully ready to pay for this class. It was like $40 to take this class, which for a master class is about average, I guess. Like, for a regular class, it'd be pretty expensive. But this is the Mariinsky Ballet. So $40 was like pretty reasonable for a 2-hour class. And they were like, oh no, you're fine. Like, go ahead. She already paid. And I was like, for real? And they were like, yeah, go. So I got to go with the group and go up to take this Mariinsky class for free. I got to take a Mariinsky masterclass at the Kennedy Center for free, unplanned, just completely unbidden. And it was like God was saying to me, like, here you go, like nudging me in that direction, because I hadn't danced for 2 years. Like, I hadn't taken a class for my own personal enjoyment even. I hadn't taken a single gosh darn class in 2 years because, again, I was in survival mode. I was not thinking about physical exercise, much less doing anything for my enjoyment other than laying in my bed, trying to get through my depressive episodes. So I was there that night for a purpose, and that was God's little wink at me. And I love telling this story and I've told it to so many of my friends, because without this class, I would not be where I am today. I physically would not be here, because when I took that class that night, that 2 hours, most painful 2 hours of my life, don't get me wrong, because I hadn't danced in 2 years. And this was a full-blown advanced Vaganova class. What was I thinking? What was I actually thinking? I mean, obviously your muscles have muscle memory and it all comes back, but like, man, I was hurting during that class, but I was having so much fun. And I just remember my soul, not just my heart, but my soul felt so happy in that class. I will never forget that feeling of just absolute joy that came over me. And I hadn't felt happy like that in 2 years. 2 years. And it was like I just blossomed again in those 2 hours. And I was so happy. And I was jumping and I was turning. And I was like, I forgot how much fun ballet is. I forgot how much fun dancing is and how much I love it. And I had just let it go unintentionally for those 2 years doing what I was doing. And I was doing some other pretty great things during that time, like getting a master's degree, but I just forgot about dance because of the circumstances of my personal life. And after that class was over, we all got to meet the teacher and we took pictures with her. She was so nice. I loved her. I look at that picture even now. I need to frame it, honestly, and put it on my wall somewhere because I'm smiling so big and so is she. And you can just tell how much I had loved her class and what a good time I had that night. And I took a couple pictures like in Arabesque in the Kennedy Center studios, because how often do you get to take class in Kennedy Center studios? Never. So I took a couple of fun pictures with some friends that I made that night, and I really should frame those and put them on the wall because that night changed my life. I left that class that night being like, I've got to make this my life. I have got to get back to ballet. I have got to give this a shot. I've got to be a professional dancer. Because at the time when I was in grad school, I didn't really want to go to grad school and get a master's in education, but being a preschool teacher was kind of my backup plan at the time, or I thought I might dance and teach at the same time type of deal. And I do love teaching at regular school to an extent. But I also wanted to get my master's to be a better ballet teacher as well, to understand kids better. So I didn't really want to go to school during those 2 years, but I kind of had to do it to get the knowledge that I wanted to get. So I wasn't really sure at the time if I was going to just go straight into a public school teaching job or where I was even gonna live. I didn't know how long I was gonna live at my parents' house or what state I would potentially have an interest in. I literally had not thought about my life beyond those four walls because survival mode. But that class changed everything. I was like, I wanna go to auditions. I want to figure out my life and I want to be a professional dancer. So at that point, I had another semester of grad school left. So I had just finished, I think I was about halfway done at that point. I had to finish a semester and then I had one more until graduation. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. So after that class, I found some adult classes to start taking in Manassas at another very small studio that was a faith-based dance studio, and the name is escaping me again. Unfortunately, they went out of business, so they're no longer a studio, but I had adult classes there and I made some good friends who were very kind to me while I was there, and it was just a fostering environment for me to get back into dance. So I started taking adult classes twice a week in between teaching. And I was finishing my master's degree. And then when I finished my degree, I started to try and dance as much as I could. I was going to ballet 2 or 3 times a week while still teaching. I was putting on point shoes in the studio, which was very painful after 2 years off. And I was doing just dance workouts on the Wii to build my stamina. And honestly, it worked. Like if you're trying to build stamina, do a just sweat session on Just Dance on the Wii. that kicked my butt, and it built my arm muscles back as well, my back and arm muscles. So that's what I did to get in shape, which was not great shape, mind you. And I was 25 by this point, and it was January again, and it was audition season. And that starts the part of my journey that you can actually watch on this channel, because I vlogged all of those audition trips. I rode the best bus from Northern Virginia to New York City, like every single weekend in February and March, to go to as many auditions as I could. And a lot of them kicked my butt. It was so painful, like doing 2-hour point classes when I hadn't had on point shoes in 2 years. I still was so out of shape. I was so out of shape still when I was doing auditions at 25. It was terrible. Like, but I was having the time of my life. I hadn't felt that happy in years as I did when I was 25 and doing those auditions. So all of those vlogs are still on my channel. So if you scroll back, I think there's like 6 or 7 of the vlogs, including the one that brought me to Savannah. So I kind of did this like a little vlog style thing in New York and did some touristy things. And then I would do like a sort of review at the end of each trip on what I thought of the audition process, because I'd never auditioned before. I didn't know what it was like. I also ended up auditioning for Phantom of the Opera on Broadway because that is my favorite Broadway show, and it obviously has ballerinas in it. So I went to that audition too because it was free to go, and I was already in New York, so I went. And that was such a fun experience too. Sadly, I didn't get a call back for that one, and it's no longer even in New York anymore. So sad, but that was like just the time of my life. That very first audition season at 25, just like feeling alive again and just really testing the waters and seeing what I was capable of. It was really scary too, I have to say, because I was like, I'm not going to get offered anything because I'm so gosh darn out of shape. I auditioned for, let's see if I can remember the ones that I auditioned for, because in those vlogs, I didn't mention the name of the companies because I thought I was going to get in trouble or something. I don't know. I was very new to vlogging as well. So I auditioned for San Antonio Ballet, Austin, Phoenix, no, not Phoenix, Ballet Arizona. I auditioned for, I didn't make it to Houston's that year because I got travel sick, but I did another Texas one, and I don't remember what it was now. Maybe it was just Austin and San Antonio that I did. I also did Orlando. I also did Arts Ballet Theater of Florida, which is in Miami and has a Vaganova director. Did that one. I did, gosh, I don't even remember. And then I flew to Atlanta once, and I did Georgia Ballet's audition, which was very Cicchetti, and I got very travel sick. So didn't have a great time there, and I hate Atlanta, you guys already know. And then, of course, I came to Savannah and ended up here. So, and I instantly fell in love with the place. And the best part, I think, of the story, and that I think, or at least the part that I think is the funniest about how I ended up here in Savannah, is that I had done all those New York auditions. And I was like, okay, like I didn't really know how to do my research at that point. And it was kind of like haphazard going up and down on the bus. And I thought, what else can I audition for? I hadn't found any job offers yet. And I went to Wikipedia and I just typed in ballet companies in the United States. And I scrolled down through the companies and I was like, okay, where would I potentially want to live? Because again, just like this time when I've been doing these auditions, I didn't audition for anything up north. I was like, I don't want snow. I don't want cold. I'm moving to where it's warm. But literally on the Wikipedia page is where I found my current company. literally on Wikipedia. It was like at the bottom of the page, Savannah, Georgia. And I was like, oh, I've never heard of them. Let me go to their website. And I looked at the website, and at the time, our website used to say a bunch of cool stuff about how all the dancers had college degrees. And I was like, I have a college degree. Because a lot of places, like, you don't see that a lot. So the fact that they advertised that was, or that they had advertised it, was really cool to me. So that's why I ended up flying down here. And I had an audition. I think it was like me and one other girl, or it was me by myself that day. But I was crazy sunburned. If you watch that vlog, I fried myself on Tybee Island because I was so excited. It was 80 degrees and it was April. I literally fried myself as red as a lobster. And I went to the audition the next day, red. And to this day, some of my friends at the company have told me, they're like, yeah, you were really sunburned. I remember the day you auditioned. You were so sunburned. And I was like, oh, so embarrassing. But that's how I ended up here. But first of all, taking that Marinsky class changed my ever-loving life. I don't know what would have happened or where I would be if I didn't take that class. If I hadn't gone to that class, and I still to this day can't believe I got in for free. I can't believe it. I just really, it's so cool to think about that. And like, I really do need to get those pictures printed out so I can think about it more often, because I just love that part of my story so much. And then to the fact that I found my current company at the very last minute on Wikipedia. So don't let anyone ever tell you that Wikipedia is not a valuable source. I shouldn't be saying that because I've been an adjunct college professor, so I should not be advertising Wikipedia as a source, but hey, it got me to where I am, literally. So that's kind of the story of how I got to Savannah. And this has been a pretty long video already, so I'm gonna end this Tutu Tuesday here, but I hope you enjoyed this little story time. And if you have like a unique or serendipitous story time from how you started your dance career, or how you got to a summer intensive, or something cool that happened in your dance training that was life-changing for you, I would love to hear about it. I love hearing people's stories and like cool experiences that they've experienced in the dance world. So comment or send me a message, tell me all about it. I would love to hear. And again, if you have ideas for Tutu Tuesday, drop them below. I will try my best to think of some more topics that we can chat about. There will definitely be plenty more story times, trust me. I could probably do another story time about my first audition experience at 25. I'll probably definitely do another one in a recap review of my current one that is still ongoing at age 31. So thanks for watching this little story time, this little Tutu Tuesday, and I look forward to doing more sit-down videos like this. So hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys later. Bye!